The livelihood of 31 cacao farmers is being threatened. These farmers entered into an agreement with Yakshe Conservation Trust for the production of cacao plants and cultivation of wet cacao beans. But as we saw today, the future of these farmers is being threatened by illegal activities such as cattle ranching and farming. In June 2014, the Forest Department, Yakshe Conservation Trust, and the Trial Farmers Cacao Growers Association entered into an agroforestry concession allowing 31 farmers to use a little over 900 acres of land within the Maya Mountains North Forest Reserve for agriculture. A section of the selected land was designated for the production of cacao plants so farmers can harvest wet cacao seeds.
So far, they have managed to harvest over 2,000 pounds of cacao just in the month of January and February this year. Prior to that, they had basically harvested over, again, 3,000 pounds, and now their harvest is really increasing as the months go by.
This is the first year that farmers have begun harvesting cacao. It took them more than 3 years before they could have begun doing so. For most, it's their only source of income. The farmers are trained in best agriculture practices, and as an association, their goal is to produce organic cacao. But a 2015 decision to de-reserve 2,310 acres of land within the reserve has not only attracted squatters, but the negative impacts that come along with them. Executive Director for Yaksha Conservation Trust, Christina Garcia, highlighted a fence which was illegally erected along a portion of the Trial Branch River in a de-reserved section.
The farmer wants to put in sheep and cows within that area, and he doesn't have an area where the cow could actually go and drink water. So he's using this to allow the cow to come down and drink water. But at the same time, posing a threat to the water here, because then you have an issue of contamination, and then you have an issue of people that depend on this watershed, on this source that lives downstream for their own consumption. There's a 66-foot buffer zone that needs to be respected. In this case, it's not respected any at all. That's mandatory. That's across the law. It's not being respected. So we want the Lands Department to come and implement some of these rules and regulations, some of these laws, because it's obvious that it has an impact on the work that we do.
The authorities can remove this fence.
The authorities can remove the fence.
Garcia says that for the past 3 years, large plots of land have been cleared for illegal cattle ranching and farming.
As you can see behind me, there's a fencing of that falls right within the river, but you also have a lot of clearances and cattle ranching occurring within the area. And Yaksha basically have been liaising with the Lands Department to try to do some sort of monitoring of the area, but to put some kind of control, because it is a challenge to the agroforestry concession. You have cattle ranching, you have milpa farming, you have burning occurring, the usage of pesticides and chemicals that drift into the area. And now you have a problem with the cattle coming into the area. And sometimes some of these cattle escape and they go into the agroforestry concession and trample some of the plants or eat some of the plants.
But the troubles of the cacao farmers are far worse. The association still has hopes to be a certified seller of organic cacao, but its goal has been blocked by the illegal activities. Farmers on the de-reserved section are using methods opposite to best agriculture practices. They are using chemicals that drift into cacao plantations, contaminating what should be organic cacao. This prevents the association from being certified.
It affects us equally because as a group we have a goal, we have a mission to complete. And right now, presently, it's affecting our certification, which is something very important to this group, because if we do not have that certification on time, then we cannot ourselves sell our product as organic. We should have been certified by now, but due to these setbacks, then it's time lost. We have had a visit prior by one of the certifiers, and those were the things that he mentioned to us, that we must ensure the certification beforehand, and we must address those issues when it comes to the use of pesticides.
Plot number 10 has been allocated to Jose Tut and his family. They are currently harvesting about 700 cacao plants. Today we catch up with the family, and today they managed to harvest about a sack of wet cacao beans. They sell the cacao beans for $1 per pound.
The way how the farmers go about harvesting cacao is, as you can see, we need to inspect each plant, determine the ones that are fully ripened, and they go pulling them down. They gather them in one location, and then they start cracking the pods to extract the actual cacao beans, and it is placed in a container, and then it is weighed and sold to the buyer.
It's an increasingly frustrating situation for the NGO and association, especially since the trust has been reaching out to the Lands Department to address the matter. In fact, according to Garcia, a land use plan was presented to the Lands Department, but any sort of initiative on behalf of the department has been almost non-existent.
We have not received any response from the Lands Department as to why they haven't moved and do something about what is happening within the area. Yakshe, like I mentioned, Yakshe has gone to the extent of providing a land use plan that basically outlines where your buffer zone should go, some of the practices that could be used within the area, but that has gone, like I mentioned, on deaf ears, and it's really frustrating over the past 3 years because we have farmers that are doing best agricultural practices within an area, and then you have the dereservation that buffers that area where you see all these illegal activities occurring.
If the concerns are addressed, the cacao farmers have the opportunity to earn about $1 million in the next few years. Hipolito, Novelo, News 5.